Welcome to the online library project where we learn English and spend our time comfortably and usefully. Today we are going to learn more about those who have devoted their lives to people. You can see now on the screen some pictures of a very well-known Moldovan actor. Do you know who this person is? If you have said Mihai Volunteer, then you are definitely right. We're going to learn more about Mihai Volunteer, and we are also going to find out information about Mother Teresa. Firstly, we're going to read a text and get acquainted with who was Mihai Volunteer. Mihai Volunteer, a famous Moldovan actor, was born in Onișcani, Orhei, in 1934 in the family of a forester. The 7 children of the family learned a lot from their father, Iermolae Volunteer, an educated man and a great lover of nature. Their mother, Feodosia Volunteer, was a great music lover and a wonderful storyteller. From both mother and father, the children learned to enjoy work and to love people and nature. In his early childhood, Mihai Volunteer was good at acting and played in many school and village shows. After school, he did different kinds of jobs, but he felt he was born to act. So in 1957, when the theater Vasile Alexandri opened in Belts, Mihai Volunteer became one of its first actors. The first play in which he acted on the stage of Vasile Alexandri Theatre was Chirița în Iași by Vasile Alexandri. Since then, he has starred in more than 100 theatre shows and in 30 films produced at over 15 studios in the world. He toured lots of countries, but always returned home to Vasile Alexandri Theatre. Mihai Volunteer is an internationally famous actor. He won many national and international awards. He was the laureate of numerous international theatre and cinema festivals. In this picture, you can see Spiridon Vangheli and Mihai Volunteer getting Life Achievements Awards. These awards are considered to be the most precious. However, success has never gone to his head. He was a home-loving man and very close to his family. His wife, Eufrostina Dobândă Volunteer, was a talented actress too. They belonged to the same theatre troupe. Mihai Volunteer died on the 15th of September 2015. This was a short introduction of who Mihai Volunteer was. We are very proud that we have so many talented people in our country, people who devoted their life to people. Now we are going to listen to a dialogue with Mihai Volunteer. He is going to tell us more about his childhood. But first, let us learn some new words. The first word is chirping, next forester, sapling, stage, award, cricket, mea, studio, unforgettable, star as a verb, and in the midst of. The first word is chirping, chiripit. The chirping of the birds early in the morning makes us want to wake up and go outside and play, right? Next word is forester, pădurar. A forester works in the woods or in the forest. They take care of everything that grows and lives in the woods or forests. Their job is very important because trees can get ill, and a forester takes care of the trees and makes them well. Sapling, puiet. A sapling is a young tree that is necessary to plant so that it can grow big and be a house for chirping birds. A forester has to take care of saplings so that they don't get sick. An award, un premiu. An award is usually given to people for some achievements, niște realizări. These achievements come from hard work and a lot of dedication. The next word is cricket, greier. A cricket is an insect that has a very loud and specific noise. We can hear crickets during summer, right? Mea, iapă. A mea is the female of a horse. In this picture, you can see a mea and a foal, mânz. The next word is studio, un studio. A studio is a place where musicians or actors, photographers or painters go and work creatively. The next word is unforgettable, de neuitat. In this picture, you can see some fireworks. Imagine you are there. That would be quite an unforgettable experience, wouldn't it? The next word is to star, a fi protagonist. Mihai Volunteer starred in more than 100 plays and films. Can you imagine how much work he has done? And in the midst of, în mijlocul. In this picture, you can see a bee in the midst of the field of flowers. Now you're going to listen to the interview with Mihai Volunteer and answer the questions. Where did Mihai Volunteer spend his childhood? Unde și-a petrecut Mihai Volunteer copilăria? How was it to live in there? Cum a fost să trăiască acolo? What was Mihai Volunteer's favorite animal when he was a child? Care era animalul preferat al lui Mihai Volunteer când era el copil? What curious story did Mihai Volunteer retell? Ce povestioară curioasă a spus Mihai Volunteer? So the dialogue is between Victor and Mr. Volunteer. Victor asks, could you tell us about your childhood, Mr. Volunteer? Mr. Volunteer asks himself, what would you like to know? Victor asks, where did you spend your childhood? Mr. Volunteer answers, in the midst of nature. I lived in the forest as my father was a forester. Victor asks, how was it to live in the forest? And Mr. Volunteer gives the answer. It was exciting. We made friends with roes and hares. We woke up with the songs of birds and fell asleep with the chirping of crickets. We grew saplings and then planted them in the forest as food for animals. Victor asks, What was your favorite animal when you were a child? Mr. Volunteer answers, I loved all animals, especially horses. They are so kind, intelligent, and devoted. I have always had a horse. Victor asks, could you tell us about something curious from your childhood? Mr. Volunteer says, I learned to ride a horse when I was 3. I was still very young when I took my mare to the meadows where grown-ups grazed horses on Sundays. They organized horse races and often won them. Victor says, thank you very much, Mr. Volunteer. And Mr. Volunteer says, it was my pleasure. Now let us see what the answers to the questions are. The first question, where did Mihai Volunteer spend his childhood? So he spent his childhood in the midst of nature. He lived in the forest as his father was a forester. The next question was, how was it to live there? Do you remember what Mr. Volunteer said? So it was really exciting. He made friends with roes and hares, and he woke up with the songs of birds and fell asleep with the chirping of crickets, and they grew saplings and then planted them in the forest as food for animals. What was Mihai Volunteer's favorite animal when he was a child? Do you remember? So he always loved animals, but he loved most of all the horses. And why? Because the horses are kind, intelligent, and devoted. What curious story did Mihai Volunteer retell? So he said, I learned to ride a horse when I was 3. I was still very young when I took my mare to the meadows where grown-ups grazed horses on Sundays. They organized horse races and I often won them. So this was the interview with Mihai Volunteer, a great actor and lover of nature. Mihai Volunteer lived a happy life next to his family, and we must cherish, să prețuim, we must cherish his memory. In Belts, there is a bust erected to cherish Mihai Volunteer's memory. The monument is in Belts because Mihai Volunteer starred in a lot of plays on the stage of the Vasile Alexandrii Theatre. On Aleea Claselor from Chișinău, we have many busts erected to cherish the memory of our writers and poets. Have you ever visited Aleea Claselor from Chișinău? Do you know how many busts are there? The Alley of the Classics contains 28 busts. You can put flowers or have a moment of recollection at the busts of Grigore Vieru, or Constantin Stere, or Mihail Sadoveanu, or Liviu Rebreanu, etc. Now we're going to learn the rule of using relative pronouns whose, who, and that. Whose, al cui sau al cărei, whom, care sau pe care, and that, care. We use whose to show possession. John is the boy whose brother is a champion. John este băiatul al cărui frate este campion. We use who to show the person or people that perform an action. This is the girl who speaks 4 languages. Aceasta este fata care vorbește 4 limbi. We use that to show the person or people or an object or objects, obiecte sau un obiect, that are likely to be performed action at. This is the book that I'd like to read. Aceasta este cartea pe care aș vrea să o citesc. Now we're going to practice the relative pronouns whose, who, and that, and learn about Mother Teresa. Remember that whose is translated as al cui, al cărei, who, pe care, only for a person or people, and that, pe care, for a person or people or object or objects. So the first sentence, Mother Teresa, real name was Agnes Bociuxiu, was born in 1910. Maica Teresa, al cărei nume, right, al cărei, so we use Mother Teresa, whose real name was Agnes Bociuxiu, was born in 1910. Next sentence, Mother Teresa was a missionary care a ajutat. Care, who. So Mother Teresa was a missionary who helped sick people all over the world. Next word, next sentence, Agnes, a cărui tată, a cărui, whose father was a grocer, decided to become a nun at the age of 12. The next sentence, her father, tatăl ei, care, who came from Albania, supported her decision. Teresa is the name, este numele pe care. Is the name that, because that is a relative pronoun to be used for objects, right? So Teresa is the name that she took when she became a nun. Sentence number 6. In 1928, she went to India. She looked after poor people, oamenii săraci care locuiau. Care locuiau, who. So she looked after poor people who lived in the streets. In 1979, she won the Nobel Peace Prize that made her world famous. So let us read the text again and pay attention to how much sacrifice Mother Teresa had made for the people of India. Mother Teresa, whose real name was Agnes Bociuxiu, was born in 1910. Mother Teresa was a missionary who helped sick people all over the world. Agnes, whose father was a grocer, decided to become a nun at the age of 12. Her father, who came from Albania, supported her decision. Teresa is the name that she took when she became a nun. In 1928, she went to India. She looked after poor people who lived in the streets. In 1979, she won the Nobel Peace Prize that made her world famous. Today, we found out interesting information about Mihai Volunteer and Mother Teresa, two great souls who devoted their lives to people. We have to cherish people who sacrifice their lives and treat people with love and kindness. As it is time for reflection, I advise you to read more about other people in the world that devote their lives to doing good things. Have a great time learning.